move on to the directions for the future, what's the solutions for Hastings and coastal communities in general. So I know that in Hastings and St Leonards in 2010 we're working with regional and local agencies to try and come up with a strategic plan for the next 10 years, I think it was. But we can still see that there's a lot of deprivation still in Hastings, and business turnover rates aren't really growing very much. So do we need a strategic master plan for the coastal communities across the southeast? Philip, would you like to comment on that?
I think from an economic development perspective, I think Hastings is actually very well positioned in terms of the developments that have happened with the Link Road opening up new areas for commercial development. I think there are a lot of exciting possibilities. Also with A-grade office space in the town centre. I think we need to work very hard to actually get that message out to other businesses in the Sussex and other coastal businesses. I think in a broader sense though, I think highlighting the fantastic location is something we need to do much more of. And again, not only as a part of a visitor economy, but as a place for creative entrepreneurs to actually be based and to actually fit in with the existing entrepreneurial community here in Hastings. And I think those are things I'd say specifically we need to focus on.
So in terms of improving the reputation to get these people in, how do we think that we'll be able to implement a new, better identity for Hastings?
Yeah, I mean, a couple of people have mentioned a few things. We talked about the pier. We talked about some of the festivals that Hastings are known for. I think infrastructure was going to be a challenge. It sounds like it's on the cards, but it could be a long way away, and it could take a while to get these sort of things. Education is key. I think with anything, when you're moving house or you're trying to attract people, people want to send their children to school. Okay, so they're also looking at the schools in the area, so that's a key thing to talk about. So working collaboratively, and that's probably the key word, together in order to focus on education, structure, which will take a long time, but still always worth having a go with, and chipping away. Just putting those things together, putting key people together, and there's a number of task force and across the coast to work through, but it can only be done together.
In terms of infrastructure, high-speed broadband is yesterday's news. We need ultra-high-speed broadband now, and if we can get ultra-high-speed broadband in towns like Hastings and Eastbourne and all along the coast, then all those creative industries will come.
You're right. High-speed broadband is a challenge for a lot of the country, a lot of the places across the country, including high-speed broadband. I mean, even near some of the airports and Gatwick, Heathrow, there's spots where you won't get signal, let alone ultra high speed broadband. So, but yeah, it is a key thing for businesses to operate using.
Also, Tim mentioned identity, and I think in terms of looking at how other people have tackled it, Margate have been focusing on their identity quite hard. Eastbourne have actually employed a brand specialist to look at their identity, and they got all of the local business people together to get them involved in understanding the identity of Eastbourne. It was really interesting what they came up with, and that gives us a way to start promoting ourselves in a positive way. A lot of people think Eastbourne is a retirement town. It's not. It actually has exactly the national average in terms of age profile. And the average age in Eastbourne now is 43, which I think is about 2 years away from the Brighton average age. So we need to communicate to people that actually, yes, we do have well-heeled, the Grey Pound, but we also have a lot of exciting younger people who are coming up with new ideas all the time for new businesses. We need to support them.
Speaking to somebody out there talking to national businesses, i.e. retailers, caterers, leisure occupiers, it is really important, because I've really struggled, even with Eastbourne, giving them all the facts and figures, the demographic, the catchment, everything that you just mentioned there in terms of the population is not as aged as you think it is, etc., and it's not this sleepy town where nothing goes on. I can give people all the facts and figures, but when people have preconceived ideas in their heads, it's very difficult to change that. Once I've managed to get people down to Eastbourne, then I can sell the town. What a lovely town. Oh, right, okay, it's not full of old people. It's really busy. It's got so many positive things. Once we can get people to come to Eastbourne or come to Hastings, then we can really sell it. But you've really got to try and break through that, create an identity, and break through people's preconceived ideas to get them there in the first place. And that's kind of the challenge. There's lots of great things about Hastings, as we've discussed today, as there are with Eastbourne. It's just trying to put them all together, market them, and come up with the right image. I think, as you said, the pier reopening is a great opportunity on a national scale to do something big and promote the town.
I'm sure it's not cheap to employ brand specialists to come up with your identity, but it really does help. It really helps to coalesce.
I think there's we talked about role models as well, and Philip talked about actually a lot of the businesses that are successful in Hastings, and sometimes we talk about all the negatives and the things that are wrong, but actually if there's some things that are working really well, having role models in business, individuals and companies will help, if we can publicise those, help retain skills, especially if you're working, starting with the schools, working with the universities, etc. People think, actually, this is an area where I can have a career and I don't need to go and move to Gatwick to work in London or move to Brighton because it's slightly quicker, etc. So I think finding those stories, those, as you're saying, finding those success stories and highlighting those, this could be an attractive place and where all the strengths and the positives and getting those out in the public domain.
And I think if we're working strategically, perhaps it might be to pick out some of the things that work in the coastal towns. So you're actually highlighting the positives about the towns. We know the issues that are there. That's been brought to the fore. There's reports out there. But how do we identify what works in these areas, what we can do to make a difference?
I think Neil's point is very pertinent, and in Hastings in particular, I think there is something of a gulf between the perception that people have of the town who are non-visitors, who don't know the town, and the reality that's here, in that actually it is a vibrant and exciting place to be. There are things going on almost every weekend. There are events happening. It has a very creative community. It has strong businesses around the outskirts of Hastings. Has room for growth and development as well. So there's a lot of positives that, as located Sussex, we need to work very, very hard to communicate to those that may be looking for premises, who may be forced out of London because of lack of commercial premises, and to highlight all of the benefits that we've talked about earlier about being based, on the coast in beautiful East Sussex.
Yeah, and how do we get those positives across to people, visitors as well as residents, and also how do we implement these changes without leaving the residents themselves behind? Would you like to comment on that first?
Well, I mean, absolutely. I mean, I think we can highlight certainly the affordability of what's here, the availability of commercial premises that are in East Sussex. I think the local businesses, local population are very positive about bringing new companies in, about working with new companies to highlight what's here and why it's a great place to be. We have a number of ambassadors that we work with as Locate East Sussex, all of them local business people who are very good at going out and talking to other businesses about why being based in East Sussex is good for business. And tapping into that, I think the combination that we have here of creative communities, of manufacturers, and that pool of talent that exists here is something that augurs very well for the future. And in addition to the work that's going on with education providers to bring in that next generation of entrepreneurs and working with local business support organisations to actually show the dynamism that exists here. And I think that's a very important thing that we try hard to get across.
And Carol, what happens if the local community resists any change that we want to implement?
I think it's about taking them with you. I think about getting them to understand, because actually the community isn't generally resistant. The community wants Hastings to succeed, but it's not. They don't want to get left behind. Some of them will need support in going along with change, and it is about education and going along with your skills. It's about skills for adults as well as about the education of children, and picking up your skills and opportunities that we were successful with. That will give those people a chance that they would never have had without that opportunity to actually engage in skills that they can take forward and get employment from. That's what we need to be thinking of. How do we do it slightly differently? How do we find what these local people really can do, give them the opportunities and take them forward?
And in terms of entrepreneurial spirit, community and business, how do we sustain business growth?
I think it's the strength of the local networks, the chambers and all the other organisations that have been mentioned today, and I think once the businesses are there and plugged in, they will naturally support themselves. I think the level of entrepreneurial interest from the local authority does reflect the fact that the population is behind entrepreneurship and business, that the authority wouldn't be as progressive as it is in supporting if they didn't have the support of their constituents. And I think part of the overall identity and the brand, looking outwards, has to celebrate Hastings' entrepreneurial drive and actually outline how it rivals and perhaps differs from some of the other competitors. So yes, it has got a developing creative scene, but how does that differ to Brighton? If you're a London business or anyone else looking to escape to the seaside, why choose Hastings? And I think compared with a lot of local authorities across the south coast, I think Hastings can accurately claim to be one of the most, if not the most, entrepreneurial.
And finally, I think the final point would be really, should we as coastal towns in South East be working together cooperatively, or is there always going to be an element of competitiveness with tourism, infrastructure, the funding? What do you think, Tim?
I think my view is collaboration and cooperation will yield more results more quickly than trying to do it on your own. So that doesn't mean to say that people can't have different strategies, and we talked about identity and playing to strengths, and I think that's really crucial as well, and they might have different needs as well. But if you think about infrastructure along the south coast, it can go up and down, it can go across, and I think having a louder voice, a bigger stakeholder group on those core, more bigger strategic issues will help a number of communities, not just one or two in isolation. So I think collaboration is key, but that doesn't mean to say that you don't have your own priorities and identities that you need to protect and build on as well.
I think that probably concludes our session. So thank you very much for commenting, everyone. It's been useful and very enlightening. So thank you very much for coming.
Yeah, on behalf of NatWest, just add my thanks to that as well. Appreciate you joining us this morning for an interesting discussion. And I think what I take away from it is that whilst there are, coming into the conversations, clearly some needs of this local area and some areas of focus, there are also some real positives in there and some things to go for as well. So I think it's very encouraging. Thanks, Jenny, for moderating the conversation.